was 20 years late. It was 20 years after the show had been on. And I was setting my story 20 years.
So number 6 and number 2 are both
Yeah.
older, they're 20 years
Yeah.
older. It's not like an ambiguous, like a couple of years later.
Right.
So it's 1988
Yeah.
when this is happening in the village.
Right. And that gave me as much freedom as I wanted. Because I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to do the further adventures or pick up where it left off. Revisit it.
Did you factor in any technological advances? Did you keep that in mind?
Well,
Or did you kind of want to keep it in a bubble a little bit?
the one technological advance I'm a little bit embarrassed about was that one of the conceits of the story was that the new number 6, Alice, was on a going around the world in a sailboat. And I was, at that time, I wasn't quite as familiar with GPS as y'all are now. So my conceit for her GPS being manipulated so that she was crash landing. That was one of the oversights.
Oversights in your book, yeah.
On my part. I just didn't know enough about it at the time. But it's still working in terms of the story.
Yeah, no, I think it does, yeah. I don't think, I didn't think about, I didn't think about that myself when I read it. Yeah, and then, you can imagine if you try to do it now with the cell phones and computers and everything else, the whole subtext of freedom.
Oh, yeah.
And
More so.
let them know, tell them what you're working on now, which kind of ties into all this in a way. So if you don't mind, go ahead and announce the graphic thing.
Oh, yeah. Right now I'm working on a graphic novel biography of Martian Cohen. And that has a lot of subtext and philosophy of how media and the electronic age affects individuality.
What was a big phrase for him? The medium is a message.
Medium is a message.
And and that was in the air too, just as much as what the prisoners playing with back then.
Yeah.
So that'll be a perfect thing for you to work on. That you're working on. It's gonna take a few years, right? So it's gonna be pretty thick.
It's, yeah. The original script was 600 pages. I said, well, I may not finish it. I may have to get a legacy artist to complete the project. We're paring it down. The man had a long career and very influential.
I'm sure McGowan and his writers were very aware of what and when they were writing the prison, because they were trying to touchstones. If you watch that series, like you said, I like how you put that. It's of its time, but it's timeless. You get the 60s, and I was really amazed that they had. I have a feeling that either John, Paul, George, and Ringo were fans because they actually got a Beatles song in the last episode, which was unheard of. And the rights to get a Beatles song, still to this day, is expensive. As much as I was thinking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino's film, and all this wonderful soundtrack he does on his thing, but you can't do a true 60s movie, a thing set in the 60s, without some Beatles playing somewhere, because the Beatles was everywhere in the airwaves. So when Gould was able to snag that, when and I love they put the prisoner back in it, and once he defeats number 2 on 101, they put him back in his original outfit he came in, and then he gets walking through these jukeboxes. And of course, it's all you need is love. And then he comes back when they're all the machine guns are spraying, and all you need is love. And just all these little stuff, that things. That last episode is so full. I had just recently did a podcast on The Prisoner. We were doing podcasts on our favorite television shows, and my friend who was on the podcast hadn't seen it, so he was watching them, thinking, so we could do it. And I said, when you get to the last 2, I want to be there. I want to watch the last 2 with you, because those last 2 are just a mind F. They just really mess with you. Did you have a question?
Quick observation and then a question. With the graphic novel, I'm trying to remember from the title, it's Shattered Visage, right?
Right.
Okay. I think one of the things that actually adds weight to it now, even if you couldn't have, well, maybe you thought about it at the time, but because this is in 1988, and because even though The Prisoner is not just an espionage story, don't be associated with espionage. And this being 1988, this is what we now know is near the end of the Cold War, so there's also kind of a shift.
Yeah, the Cold War.
And I think that in a way kind of taps into it of like a change of.
That's good. So that's in other words, you're saying that as the series was played in the 60s era, he was playing the Cold War.
Yeah, and even then we maybe didn't know it, but it's like near the end of the Cold War, and in some ways the story kind of acts as a touchstone of, because at the end of the graphic novel, you have number 6 and Alice, and they're sort of talking about a change of how things are.
Right.
And I think in some ways, now that we know that time period, what we do, in some ways that adds a little extra weight to it. And just for fun, not counting the 2-part finale, because that's almost a cheater, what is everyone's favorite episode of The Prisoner?
What is it?
Burglars that, and Schizoid Man.
I was going to say Schizoid Man. I really get a kick out of Schizoid Man. What's your favorite?
Actually, I really like, well, of course there's a lot, but I really like Hammer and the Gamble just because the number 2 basically offends number 6 so badly that number 6 isn't even bothering to try to escape for the moment. He just wants to break this phone.
Yeah, I didn't do all my homework that I should have. I didn't even know I was going to have a prisoner back until like 2 weeks ago. But I've read so much and I forgot more than I've read. But I think don't you think that at one point the number 2s are being aggressive on him, but then he starts to turn the tables.
Yeah.
Where the number 2s are not. He's the aggressor.
Yeah, near the end of the series.
Yeah, and there's a shift. Don't you think the demon?
Yeah, I mean, he knew that he had the upper hand as far as his interrogation.
Because he had something they wanted.
And as far as, they were keeping him there, but he was defiant. And, that evolved the series. That he knew that he was on, almost on a peer level. Whoever that was, he knew that all the number 2s were expendable. They were all, came and went. But he was always
The constant. And then I think if I remember reading this, there's talk about there were only so many episodes, or there's not this many episodes, and there's going to be another season, blah blah blah. But I think some of that shift was
Around the
because
second season.
yeah, some of that was shift was because they had to make some more episodes that Magoon hadn't planned on. And so they started messing around more with
And I think they also, at that point, they kind of knew that there was going to be an ending at some
Right.
point, so.
But because I think I've read one of the books there is these are the essential episodes, and then these are the non-essentials in some ways, But I like them all. I wish Magoon had done more in his career and been a little more prolific, but that was the way he is. Any other questions, or we're about ready to wrap up here? Yeah.
Yeah, got one sort of an observation, maybe a question.
No, that's great.
You know, I was a little younger. I was 5 and 6 when it first came out.
Did you see it when you were?
Oh yeah. I was pretty precocious. I was kind of in there all that and understood it. In my dad was in that, so supernatural, sci-fi, the violence, spy phrase, all that. But so we watched Secret Agent, and I'm revisiting those now on MeTV as Danger Man and all that too. But I think a couple of things that were interesting was, and particularly now we're looking at the old episodes again. Even Danger Man was ambivalent a lot. I mean, everything, again, kind of that Cold War setting, but everything wasn't necessarily black and white in those little made-up countries he would go to and other things he was involved in. And as a kid watching it, I think I had a really clear sense of right and wrong. And so it kind of was frustrating to watch those and not, see everything kind of reconcile the way you'd expect. And then when we started watching The Prisoner, I was very frustrated as a kid. Because, I understood it was absurdist, and I understood it was supposed to be kind of, crazy, but I also wanted a nice, tidy resolution, But I did always think that it was interesting then and even now, and again, I agree with these other comments, sort of timeless. It fit at the time, but there's all kind of different ways to go back and reflect on it now. But I thought it was interesting that they kept him alive as a kid. I kept thinking, why don't they just kill him? And I thought, what does he know? What's the information?
What is in his head?
And again, I always assumed, he was, John Drake and all that too. But I'm like, at some point, he's more trouble than he's worth. So I don't know if you ever kind of, Mr. Motter played with that idea, thought about that as well. But why is he still there? Why is he still around? And I think that was the central point that I struggled with the most.
I really don't. I've never taken it that far. Because in a realistic setting, well, they would probably just say, well, this is not paying off. Let's take care of it. Do you think he had something really major in his head?
Well, I think that was always
the metaphor. It's a metaphor.
The wonderful ambiguity
Yeah.
of that was, they were interrogating him not only about what he had in his head, but why he resigned.
Why?
What drove him over the edge? And why do we have to keep him? Or why do we have to interrogate him to find out just what that?
I think some of that is kind of like referencing the judge talking at the last episode, about the man. Here we have in front of us the man. But it's all, it's very, they didn't want to screw the tie, they didn't want to nail it down. So that's why it stays so timeless in a way. But I was 9, and I thought he did escape. I just took it as, I said, okay, he's gone, yay, and plus they actually wrapped it up, so I thought it was really nice. But as I got older, I go, no, he didn't escape. And I caught all the subtext and the metaphors and all the analogies.
Well, the thing about him escaping, I won't say frustrated, but the question is, the number of times he did escape using the raft.
Yeah.
And in the end, drove a truck.
Yeah.
So, my version is that, it was a tropical house.
But if you haven't read this graphic novel, I really recommend it.
Yes.
Dean's got a table here. You're here today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you want more questions or talk to you now, be sure to hit him up. We're out of time because we're kind of coming here. So, but I think my money's worth. The Prisoner is the #1 series, my favorite #1. #1. And Dean did a great job with the follow-up on it. And and it's still available out there, right? Still in print, from Titan. So if you want the new edition, is there any new in the new edition that wasn't?
There's some sketches and some original.
Okay, so that's probably our time to wrap it up, right?
Well, we're going to start Buckaroo Banzai. It'll probably take 5 or 10 minutes per second.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, yeah, I'm involved with what Ramon's and stuff today too, so.
You can go a
Thank
few
you.
more minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. We should go by so you can talk to Dean and say hi to him. And you want to talk prisoner, if you see me around, I'm always happy to talk about it.